Today we'll be interviewing yet another content creator. We have Felix. He's been on YouTube for how many years now?
I've only really been making content, I guess, quote, seriously for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. But I've been on YouTube for a while.
How did you get into YouTube?
So I come from a film production background, mainly through marketing. And I've worked at a number of different agencies and HR firms, and always through the lens of video creation. And so I guess I stumbled across some of Casey Neistat's vlogs a few years back, and like everyone who watches this stuff, got obsessed. And at one point just decided I want to try it. And so I started trying to make my own videos. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Some of them were vlogs, some of them were just weird short films or whatever. I still don't really know what I'm doing on YouTube, but I just try and do whatever interests me.
So I know for a fact that you do art as well. If you look on your channel, you've got all these videos you've done, like drawing those shoes and just, drawing. And when did art interest you?
So I've always drawn. I guess that in our house, we always had paper and pencils and markers lying around. And so my parents always very much promoted the idea of creativity. My parents are both musicians. And so my brother and I guess by default ended up becoming musicians and also artists in our own right. And so I've always been into drawing and painting and creating in that sense. And with the whole video production thing kind of melding with that, I decided, I guess I should figure out how to make these two work in tandem. And so you have this filmmaker background, and then you have the art side, and you mesh the two, and you kind of get the content that I create.
Didn't you design one of the Mr. Beast shirts? Didn't you design one of them?
I did. I actually designed the most recent 40 million shirt for the live stream. That shirt was one of like 5 or 6 designs that I presented, and then the one that they picked is obviously the one that most people have seen and some people were able to get a hold of. There is another live stream coming up, so just a heads up. And I designed that one as well. So I've been fortunate enough to be able to do quite a bit of work for Mr. Beast.
Do you think you would keep doing this?
I've done graphic design in the past, and I was hired as a graphic designer for a number of years for different companies. So graphic design is definitely a fantastic skill set. I guess early on, when you love to draw and paint and you have these grandiose ideas of being an artist, you learn really quickly that that's much more difficult to do in the real world. And so I found graphic design because that was still flexing that creative, I guess, drawing, painting side of my brain. But it was a lot easier to be more corporate with it, a lot easier to pitch those ideas to clients and say, hey, I can actually do this stuff for you if you pay me money. And so I slowly became a graphic designer that I guess professional graphic designer. So that skill set's tucked away in there, and it helps a lot working for Mr. Beast.
Did you take graphic design in school?
I actually didn't go to school. So I just learned, I learned a lot of this stuff just out of necessity. So if someone needed a logo, I would kind of mess around in Photoshop and Illustrator until something clicked that I thought I liked, and then I would present it to the client and they would like it. And for every job that I did, I learned a little bit more. And that was around the time that you could actually Google things and figure out how to do things. And so I kind of cobbled together this whole experience of education just using the internet.
So for art style wise, is there a specific type of art style that you draw in, or is it like all over the board?
I grew up like most kids watching cartoons, and I don't think I've ever stopped watching them. I'm still just as obsessed with cartoons now as I was when I was a kid. But I love combining that style with street art and graffiti. And then anything else really that just kind of catches my eye. But a lot of people have described my art as being very street art forward with a heavy cartoon slant. So it's very kid-like, I guess you could say.
Would you ever be interested in, doing some animations?
Animation is awesome. I love watching and experiencing animation, but animation is also insanely hard work. I dabbled in it for a little while thinking I was going to be an animator, And after about 4 or 5 months of trying it, I decided I would leave it to people who were much better at it than me. So in my head, I would love to do it, but I also know how much work it takes. So I think I'll just leave it to other folks to do.
Since you said that your family's kind of like into, film and production stuff, have you yourself ever directed or used a camera and helped video something for somebody?
Sure. I mean, coming from a marketing and video production background, I did a lot of directing and cam opping and editing and a little bit of everything. So I learned a lot of that side of the camera, and even being on screen and working with people who are really good on screen, I learned a lot from them. And so just like being able to Google things and figure out how do I do this and how do I do this, working with people who are professionals and who are paid, and basically being in a room where people are always smarter than you has helped a ton. So I always try and make sure that I'm not the smartest person in the room, which isn't hard. But that's definitely a good piece of advice for anyone watching.
What's been the most difficult thing you've run into in drawing, and maybe the work that you've done?
So I feel like once people watch my videos and my content, they like it and they're hooked. I try and produce videos and art that I would want to watch and like. The problem is art niches, or niches, however you want to pronounce it, they're very hard to make, I guess, big. So to make it in art, it has always been difficult because it's pretty saturated. So you have to find that sort of sliver of what it is you want to do and what it is you want to say. And I feel like I'm still just starting that sort of journey. So finding people who want to actually watch my stuff has been difficult, but for anyone who's made videos on YouTube understands how difficult that can be.
Were you active in music production, or was it just a thing that you did for a little bit?
Yeah, so I grew up playing guitar with my dad and my brothers, and then learned to play drums and piano and bass, and so I played in a good number of bands. And we actually went on tour years ago with a couple of other bigger bands, and it was great. And then I got married, and then we moved, and so the band days kind of are behind me at this point. I still bust out the drum set and the guitars and goof around on them every now and then, but nothing too major.
And I was watching you do some of the things where you drew on the shoes. How do you do that without maybe using any tape or things like that? How can you do that, even with a pencil too?
Practice, I guess. Just years of drawing in sketchbooks and drawing the cartoon characters that I see and mimicking the illustrators and the artists that I like. You just kind of develop a muscle for visual measurement and knowing exactly how big something should be relative to something else in the drawing. Unfortunately, there's no shortcuts to that skill set. You just have to mess up a bajillion times until you get it right.
What is your goal for the future and what you do as a content creator?
I'd like my art to actually mean something. And right now, I'm still trying to find what that voice is. And I think an artist, especially one who has a following and a platform, is also presented with a fairly big responsibility. And so while I'm still trying to find my footing on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever platform ends up coming my way, I'm trying to hone that message. And unfortunately, I don't know what that is right now. But I'm hoping that as I continue to make more of this stuff and meet other artists, that I'll be able to more clearly state what that is. So I would like to have a platform in which I can create that art that really pushes positivity. I know that's going to be something that I really want my art to convey. But I would love to have that sort of platform in which to share that.
I was going to ask, if you've done any spray paint stuff, on the walls in places.
I haven't done any big murals. I've done a couple of smaller murals. Unfortunately, I haven't done a mural that's 100% spray paint. It's on my list. I would love to do it one of these days. And I've had people ask me about it, but the timing just never quite has worked out. It's also one of those things that I feel like I need more practice in. And it's not like you can just find a wall and practice. So I'm trying to figure out the sort of steps to figure out how can I get some reps in and figure out how to make it look good before a client pays me to go, do 20-foot wall somewhere.
Thank you so much for coming for this really quick interview. Nice to learn more about what you do as a creator. And be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll put all the information as to where you can find Felix in the description below. And also be sure to follow the podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, and I guess all the other platforms you can find it.